Lawmaker who was upset about November's election wanted to mandate school training in how to spot fake news. Now, a different lawmaker, same state, has his own notions about how to improve education in the wake of Hillary Clinton's defeat. California Assemblyman Mark Levine is crafting a new bill that would require public schools in the state to teach about the subject of Russian hacking and how it supposedly swayed the last U.S. election. Assemblyman Levine joins us from Sacramento. Assemblyman, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you, Tucker. Glad to be on tonight.
So I'm reading this and I'm thinking, well, okay, how would you feel if Donald Trump directed the Education Department to withhold funding from any state that refused to add to textbooks the claim that 3 million people voted illegally in the last election? You'd be mad. So it raises the question, why should politicians be involved in crafting textbooks?
To me, the most important thing is that we need to understand our history to have a sense of what foreign policy we have in the future. So looking back decades from now, why are we on the course that we're on? If we look at the War of 1812, the Monroe Doctrine, the Marshall Plan, these are moments in history that really help us understand where American leadership has come from. We need to understand Russian interference in the 2016 election and its impacts on foreign policy to make sure that we have an American century ahead of us like we've had behind us, one where America is in full control of its destiny.
Okay. I mean, I think you're right, actually. But the point is we don't understand the effect of Russia in the election right now. The War of 1812 was 200 years ago. Marshall Plan was 70 years ago. We have a vantage. We get it now. We have perspective. We have no perspective on what happened, and basically what you're suggesting is adding propaganda from a politician into textbooks, and why should I be in favor of that?
Well, the intelligence community had an assessment where they agreed that the Russian government and Vladimir Putin himself had the boldest move ever in their interference in our election. And this will have an impact on American foreign policy, but we have a president who's the least curious man on the planet about this issue. He wants to change the results of the election by saying that he won by a landslide. He wants to change the number of people that went to his inauguration with, numbers that just cannot be substantiated, a loose affinity for the truth, and usually winners write the history books. But we need to make sure that the truth is in our history books and it's not papered over by the president.
Okay. No, what you're doing is trying to get losers to write the history. Well, look, I just want historians to write the history books. And
That's right. I agree with you.
I do. Who says you're a nice guy. You seem like a reasonable person. I don't want to attack you. But you know as well as I that what you're suggesting is the addition of political propaganda into textbooks. There's nothing to substantiate your claims. We don't know Russia's intent. We don't know the extent to which they influenced this election. Those are unknowable right now, and you know that as well as I do.
I agree with the intelligence community's assessment.
Look, their assessment does not say that the outcome of the election was affected by Russian interference. It doesn't say that, and you know it doesn't say that. And they also have no way of knowing the intent because it's unknowable.
They did not assess whether or not their interference had an outcome. They assessed whether or not the Russian government purposely, and Vladimir Putin himself, purposely intervened. If I were President Trump, I would condemn that interference, and I would say that they would be held accountable and that their impact would not be on foreign policy other than that. The president has done everything he can to deny it, but when he was confronted with the incontrovertible evidence of the intelligence community's assessment, even he had to agree that they were involved.
So you don't like to look. I know you're from Marin, right? You're from Marin County.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yes.
I lived in California. Like, angry rich people come up to you at parties and say, we've got to do something about this Trump character. He's terrible. He's wrecking the guy. I get the pressure that you're under. But I'm just asking you
I have highly educated and highly engaged
no, when
voters.
you're sipping Chardonnay and Ross, people are hassling you, and I get it completely. But let me just ask you, how would you feel as a parent, and I think you are a parent, if your kids' textbooks had political claims that were not basically substantiated, and they were clearly partisan, and they were inserted by some politician you didn't agree with? Wouldn't that enrage you?
So let's get into the weeds on this. Yeah, let's get in the weeds on this. So what would happen is that California has an instructional quality commission that looks at curriculum for the different subjects. They would make an assessment of how to include this. They would then make a recommendation that can be approved and accepted, revised, modified, or even rejected by the State Board of Education. And so that's how curriculum is developed. Politicians will not have a hand in what is written in our history books, and nor should they.
What do you mean? You're writing a bill to require this, so by definition you have a hand in it. But let me just say, I mean, without being mean, I love California. It's my home state, multi-generational. But it's like not as nice as it was when I grew up there, and you know that. It's much poorer than it used to be. Got a lot of problems, a lot of uneducated. It's got more poverty than any state in the country, and it's got some of the worst schools in America. And so should you, a smart, capable guy with power, be spending his time trying to appease the angry rich housewives of Ross with nonsense like this, or like improving the state?
Well, you shouldn't talk about your friends like that, but what we do have are excellent schools, the best public universities in the world, the sixth largest economy. We are leading the nation in job creation. Innovation comes from California, but where you live should not define whether or not you will be successful. This socioeconomic challenge, this inequality, is something that is as true in California as it is in Kentucky.
Okay.
We need to do more to fix that.
That's true.
And nationally, we all struggle with this.
So if you're an African-American sixth grader in California, and way less than 50%, I think it's more like 20%, pass the math standards at that age, is learning propaganda about Russian interference in the election, is that really going to make you a better software engineer? Like, this is totally frivolous.
We can learn history, and we can also, as I have since I was elected in 2012, reinvest in education, where I voted to increase spending by $14 billion, but also change the way we spend in education by making sure that the socioeconomic status does not define how much funding goes to your school, that in fact we can direct money to where it's needed to improve outcomes. We have a lot more work to do, but we need to know the truth about American history.
Okay. I don't think I'm convincing you, but you know that I'm right. I know that you do on some level. Assemblyman, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Tucker.